Good evening. My name is Michelle Martinez, and I'm going to talk to you about sexual harassment tonight. I've been a massage therapist now for 6 years, and as a massage therapist, it's very important to understand what sexual harassment is and how to deal with it. So tonight, I look to pass on a little bit of information about sexual harassment, and hopefully, it'll prevent it in the future. To begin with, I gave you $48.4 million. In 2010, $48.4 million were spent on damages due to sexual harassment. So I ask you, who's protected from sexual harassment? Everyone is. Both men and female are protected from sexual harassment under the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Now, sexual harassment just doesn't happen in the offices. It could happen in your local grocery store, and it could even happen in college. Here are some facts about college. 66% of all college students know someone personally who has been sexually harassed. 62% of women and 61% of male college students have actually been harassed. Now here's a scary number. Less than 10% have even attempted to report it. Hopefully this information will help change that number and we could start reporting them more often. So we ask, what is sexual harassment? The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission defines sexual harassment as unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, verbal or physical harassment, and offensive remarks about a person's sex. There are 4 different types of sexual harassments: verbal, physical, nonverbal, and visual. Let's begin with verbal. Verbal sexual harassment is any kind of comment about a person's clothing or behavior in a sexual way, sexual remarks, including jokes. That's the hard part. You really have to be careful about what you say, even if it's just a joke. People can take offense to it. Asking for sexual favors in exchange for something else. That's sexual harassment. If a superior comes up to you and asks you to do something sexually in exchange for a raise, that's sexual harassment. And he could get in trouble. Or she. Next, physical harassment. Assault, sexual assault. When a person comes at you and attacks you, that's physical assault. Inappropriate touching of clothing and the body is also physical assault, harassment. Inappropriate kissing, hugging, and stroking. That one's we look at mainly for offices. You don't want to have inappropriate touching, inappropriate hugging. You really need to keep your boundaries and make sure everyone feels safe and secure at work. Next, I give nonverbal. Nonverbal is anything that's not said. Gestures with facial expressions, winks, blowing kisses, wetting of the lips, any kind of sexual expression. Now, it could also be following someone. If you're following someone throughout the office, that could be considered sexual harassment. So you really need to be careful about that too. Lastly, visual. Now, visual sexual harassment can include any kind of posters you have up on your wall, pictures, drawings, your screensaver, and also emails. Those emails that you like to forward around to people that have jokes, that have any kind of sexual discrimination, is sexual harassment, and you can be in trouble. You can get in trouble for that too. So now that we know what sexual harassment is, let's ask ourselves, how do we know personally that we are being sexually harassed? There are some questions to ask. Under the Equal Rights Advocates, they give you a list of questions. Some of them are, how many times has this happened? Is this something that's been reoccurring for some time now? And you want to know how long. How long has this been going on? The next thing you want to know is, are you the only one being sexually harassed? Are there other people in your office, in your class, at work, that are being sexually assaulted or harassed by this individual? Or is it just you? And it really is important to understand that you could, then that way together you're able to file a complaint, and I'll explain that later. Another good question to ask, is your job at risk? When a supervisor offers you some sort of sexual trade, and you feel that if you don't do it, you're going to lose your job is at risk. That is sexual harassment too. By answering any of these questions and you feel that you are being sexually harassed, there is something you can do about it. What can you do? You say no. You verbalize it. By being able to go up to someone and actually verbalize your no, most of the time harassers back off. If not, you write it down. Write it down, record it, make copies, and if you can, get witnesses to sign it. That way you have your backup. You're covering yourself. Report it. Report it to your employer, your human resource department, an instructor, administrator, and if it's at school. It's very important. Start a paper trail. Make sure you have your own personal file. Get copies, all the signatures of anything that you have written down. That way, if it needs to be, and you file a lawsuit, you can go back, pull back your own personal file, and have all the records that you need. When you file a lawsuit, back when the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was in place, the best you could usually get was back pay, and if you lost your job back. Well, the Civil Rights Act of 1991 changed that. You can now collect for pain and suffering also. So it's real important. Find a lawyer, find someone who will support you, and that way you don't have to deal with the sexual harassment anymore. Finally, no means no. If something's going on, if you are being sexually harassed, file a lawsuit. Write it down. Put your file together, because together we really can stop sexual harassment. Thank you.